I did. Thank you, baby.
That's actually a great reminder.
Yep, I'll do it too. Cause
I put it on Do Not Disturb too, just to make sure, extra sure.
I'm gonna turn this shit off, yo. I'll turn this shit off. Yeah, man. Thank you. Thank you again.
No, thank you guys.
No, thank you for having us. Having
my
us
pleasure.
To at your place and being very accommodating. You know what I mean?
Of course, man. Come on.
I feel like let's just dive right into it, man. I feel like people don't really think that when they think about you.
Of course not. The media wants them to think that I'm a bad person because if they can discredit me, then people won't listen to what I say. Because you can't argue with what I say. I'm speaking the truth. So if I'm debating someone on an open stage and I'm telling the truth, the more they lie, the more they're going to expose themselves. So how do you deal with someone like that when all you're doing is lying? You've got to make people not listen to me. How do you do that? Call me bad names, make me look like a bad person. Things like conspiracy theorists. So then anything I say, people simply won't believe it. Unfortunately, when everything I say keeps coming true, all the words they start calling me start meaning less and less and less over time.
So who is Chris Sky? Like, who are you like in high school? You know what I mean?
In high school, I was unique. Like I told you before, I was considered gifted, I guess, in school. So I did very well, but I didn't like the rules. I didn't like. Basically, like now, I'm non-compliant. So I like to do my own thing. I like to be on my own schedule. I didn't like being told what to do. So I went to the minimum amount of classes that I needed to legally in order to graduate. I never brought a book to school. I only showed up if I had to like write a test. I would do all the assignments that they would give me if they were worth marks. If they weren't, I wouldn't bother. So I took a very strategic approach to it, and I did very well. I got scholarships, and I ended up graduating with honors, almost a 90% average. And I was the last year of grade 13. That's how this was possible, because we were OAC, they called it, right?
Yeah.
So we were 18 years old. So we could just sign ourselves out whenever we want. And go to our car in the parking lot and drive away. So that made it really easy.
I remember when I was in high school too, you could even make them call your cell phone instead of your mom's.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what I did. That's exactly what I did. I made myself the emergency contact. I'm like, hey, you want to call me? Call me. I'm like, I'm going home. I don't feel like being here.
Yeah.
So that I was always the kind of guy that did things my own way. And I didn't like being told what to do, but I still got the job done and I got it done right. So I carried that into the business world. I started after high school. I went to school at university. I got different scholarships to different universities, but I was also working for the family business at the time, Sky Homes, which is where the name Chris Sky comes from.
Okay.
My real last name, and everybody needs to know this because it's going to be on the ballot for a mayor. They're not going to let me call myself Chris Sky. It's Saccoccia, and that means pocket in Italian. But because people see it and they can't pronounce it, everyone's been calling me Chris Sky since I was a kid. So when I graduated high school and I went to university, I ended up going to York University for medicine because I was going to plan on being a doctor. But at the same time, I went to that school because my office was literally less than 2 blocks away on Steeles. So I could go to school and go to work at the same time. And then at the end of my first year of university, we had just a home building company at the time, and then we got a chance to do our first development.
Yeah.
And now development and home building is 2 totally different animals. Development involves working with the government, becoming influential in society. It takes a lot more years. There's a lot more potential for revenue stream, etc. Yeah. So at that point, I had to make a decision: spend a whole bunch of years in school to sit in an office and make a few $100,000 a year, or leave school, go out on my own as an entrepreneur with the company and get in on the ground floor of a whole new business that we had just started. So I left first year university. In fact, I didn't even write the final exam that was worth 50% of the entire year, and I still passed because I had a perfect score going into the final exam.
That's fucking crazy.
In first year university.
I don't know why they do that. 50% exams.
Ridiculous.
It's just a test at the end of the day.
Basically.
But like, are you going to do the work beforehand?
I think they do it like that to make sure everybody passes first year.
True.
Because if you go in there and you write your name on it and you do your best, even if you fail it, even if you got 40% on the test, you're still going to get enough added to your overall mark that you're going to pass the course. So I think that's why they put so much emphasis on it. But it didn't matter to me. I left and I started doing development. So that puts me in a unique position compared to all the other people that are running for mayor. Most of them have been in the public sector their whole life. They don't know anything about private work. They don't know anything about the real world. They don't know anything about budgetary constraints, timelines, etc. Because in government, you don't have those. If you end up spending $10 million more than you were supposed to, oh, well, we'll just borrow it. And if it took you 2 years longer than it was supposed to, oh, well, that's how this stuff works. No. If you're in the private sector, you don't get those kind of excuses. You have to make it work or you're going to go broke. But when you're in development, you got to work within those budgetary and time constraints of the private world while cutting through the bureaucracy and the red tape of the public sector, because you need them for all your permits, you need them for all your studies, environmental, engineering, planning, etc. So for someone like me to be able to work in both of those worlds simultaneously and be able to work within the public sector efficiently, that makes me by far the most qualified.
How old were you when you jumped into development?
I was 18 years old.
And are you still like developing?
Yeah, I still worked into development.
So that's so much experience.
I have over 20 years in planning and development. So when I start talking to people about 15-minute cities, I understand what it means. When I look at their plans and I ask them, when I ask a planner and I ask one of these government officials, so 15-minute city is really about getting rid of people driving cars, and they lie and they say, no, it's not. Well, I remind them that any of the people that pioneered the idea of 15-minute city will acknowledge that the primary purpose is to reduce the individual person's carbon footprint. And if you look at every person in North America, the number one thing we each have that produces our carbon footprint is our personal automobile. So when you look at these 15-minute city plans, now when you're looking at planning, if I want to build a high-rise, 30 stories, they're going to make me build so many underground levels of parking, so I have a minimum amount of parking required, not just to supply for the building, but to supply for future increase in population and future car use. We also have to do traffic studies to make sure that we can accommodate this. Well, now, under the 15-minute city doctrine, they've flipped everything backwards. Now you're not going to see any big high rises with minimum amounts of parking to make extra infrastructure for future cars and future increase in population. Now they're going the opposite way. Now you're going to see mixed-use buildings where you have residential and retail and commercial on the bottom with residential on top. And the reason for that is they want you to work and live in the same building. So you don't need a car.
So that's what they're doing right now. They're focusing. It reminds me of Amsterdam when we were walking down.
But Amsterdam, you can still have a car.
Yeah. No, I mean in the sense of like business in the bottom and then people just living and watching TV up top.
Yes. Yeah. But now imagine that and having no cars, because that's what they want. That's what the real 15-minute city plan is. The new developments, instead of minimum amounts of parking, they all have maximum amounts of parking, to ensure that not everybody can have a car, and to ensure that as the population gets higher, there's going to be even less infrastructure for cars.
Why do you think that they want this?
It's all about control. It's the same reason that they did COVID. People have to understand that COVID was phase one for what we're experiencing now, which is the climate change agenda. And they used COVID to make it possible because we had things in our mind psychologically that would never allow us to submit to the climate change agenda. So they had to restructure the way we think and the way we believe in society as a whole around the world before we would be able to give in to a 15-minute city, personal carbon allowance, digital ID, digital currency. Those are the four things they want to push on us.
Yeah. Is there any like how much steps to this agenda is there? You said
there's a lot, and the very first one was the COVID agenda. Right. And what did they want to change? There's two fundamental things they had to change about society. And the first one was the idea that individual rights and freedoms are paramount to a successful society. We believe that so strongly that in the last few generations, we fought multiple world wars to preserve that idea. Millions of people fought and died to preserve the idea that individual rights and freedoms are paramount to a successful society. Then COVID came along, and within less than 2 years, not only were individual rights and freedoms no longer paramount to a successful society, they're selfish and dangerous. And the warriors and soldiers and patriots and heroes that once fought for those rights and freedoms were now considered domestic terrorists or crazy. Very, very scary. And if you see how long we had that ingrained in society and how quickly they destroyed it, it's insane.
I was going to say, how the fuck did that happen? How did it flip so quick?
Because they used very good psychological conditioning. They told everybody that you're not giving up your rights and freedoms permanently. It's just temporarily. And you're doing it for the health and safety of your grandmother, your children. So they made you feel guilty. And then on top of that, they told you that compliance and cowardice was now virtuous and heroic. You're doing your part. You're wearing your mask to protect the other people.
It's like they're changing the meaning of words. They're changing the
They're
meaning
not just changing them. They're flipping them in reverse so they can get the opposite result. The second thing they needed to do to society to get us ready to accept the climate change agenda was not just to get rid of the individual rights and freedoms, but to get rid of the idea of individual responsibility. because that breeds independence. I'm responsible for myself. I'm responsible for my family. Leave me alone. Get out of my way. Let me live my life. Oh, no, no, no. They want you to believe in collective responsibility. So now everybody's decisions need to be monitored and controlled by the government because it affects everybody else.
Yeah.
This is straight out of communism, and it's straight out of the climate change agenda. And it works perfectly because if you believe that your decisions affect everybody else, now you're going to be willing to allow them to track your so-called carbon footprint. And once they track it, guess what's going to happen? They're going to come up with a limit of how much you're allowed to use. In fact, they've already come up with limits, and we've already signed on to them. Have you guys heard of something called the Paris Climate Agreement?
No.
I've heard of it, but I don't know much about it.
Okay, well, the main tenet of the Paris Climate Accord Agreement is we need to all reduce our carbon footprint or we're going to die. Society is going to die. And we have till 2030, Agenda 2030, to reduce our carbon footprint drastically everywhere, or we're all going to die as a species. Now, how much are we actually using apparently right now, and how much do they want us to reduce it by? So you can see exactly what this implies for reality and real world scenario. Well, they say the average North American like us uses between 20 and 30 tons or 20 and 30,000 kilograms of CO2 per year, whatever the hell that means. It really means absolutely nothing. We're carbon-based life forms. Trees breathe the carbon dioxide that we exhale, and it all goes up into the atmosphere, and it's never going to change the concentrations of gas in the atmosphere enough to have any change on planet Earth whatsoever. But they want you to believe it does, so now it's like a whole new form of currency. So what does that actually translate to in reality? If you and I want to fly to Amsterdam from here, Netherlands or London, 7-hour, 8-hour flight, and we want to fly there and back. So you're talking about 15 hours of flying. If you go to book a flight right now, Expedia, Google, it tells you how much the flight costs, obviously, how many hours you're going to fly. And then if you look on the right, it has a little new thing, CO2 rating, how much CO2 this flight costs. And if we fly from here to London or here to Amsterdam and back, it's around 500 kilograms or half a ton of CO2. Now, according to the Paris Climate Accord agreements that we've already signed on to, by 2030, the average person's entire climate footprint for the entire year is supposed to be no more than 2 tons or 2,000 kilograms.
So we wouldn't be able to travel that.
So
In that one flight, you use 25% of your yearly allowance in 14 hours.
So they're trying to eliminate travel. They're trying to eliminate us seeing like different countries. They want to put us in these small cities. That's what you're saying, these small boxes, just for control, right?
They're not even cities. When they say a 15-minute city, what does that really mean? Well, they tell you the number one thing about a 15-minute city is everything that you need is going to be a 15-minute walk or bike ride. Why? Because you're not going to be able to drive. That's the whole purpose. And because it's a 15-minute city and you're only walking, how far can you really walk or bike ride in 15 minutes in either direction? Answer, about 1.5 kilometers.
Yeah.
So that means your 15-minute city is a little, they call them districts, by the way, straight out of the Hunger Games.
Holy fuck, man.
They literally call them districts.
You can't make the shit
I
up.
swear to God. And I'll get to how each district is created. So your district is around 5 square kilometers. Where did we hear that before? 5 square kilometers. Don't you remember when you were on COVID lockdown and they said you have to stay home and they said you can't go more than 5 kilometers from your house? What a coincidence.
Yeah.
That's the exact same size of your 15-minute city. So they basically tried to get you used to this idea already. Now, how are they going to make you stay in your 15-minute city? Number one, they're going to eliminate a lot of the ways for you to leave. First of all, they're going to change a lot of car lanes to pedestrian or bike lanes. They're going to change parking lots into parks. So there's going to be less infrastructure for cars. Now that they have you in your district, they have to separate your districts. So how do they separate the districts?
Ranking?
They have them separated with traffic bollards and traffic barricades. They also have traffic cameras at every entrance and exit that are also license plate readers. So in Oxford, England, and I was just there in September, so this isn't a conspiracy theory like everybody's trying to say, and they're rioting like crazy over this over there. Yeah. Oxford was a university town. It was a pilot project for the 15-minute city. Yeah. So they broke Oxford up into 6 districts. They did exactly what I said with the bollards and the barricades and the traffic cameras. Once they had that infrastructure in place, first they told everybody it's no big deal. It's just to divide you guys. It's just not a big deal. Once they had it in place, surprise, surprise, Now they impose limits on how often you can leave your district. In Oxford, England, you're only allowed to leave your district 100 times per year.
Right now, in Oxford, England.
Right now, in Oxford, England, as we are speaking, they have the 15-minute cities in play. 94% of the people voted against it, by the way. 94 voted against it, and the council said, oh, well, we're doing it anyway because it's for the greater good. Yeah. And so now they have it set up with 6 separate zones, and each zone is made almost identical. They want to make sure that you have no reason to go to the other zone. So small business, like they started destroying it in COVID, they want to completely get rid of it. The only businesses they want in your district, Starbucks, McDonald's, the gym, etc.
The ones with their interests.
Yeah. All the ones that they own and interest. And then if your district and the district beside you has all the same restaurants and all the others, why would you go there?
Yeah.
You won't need to. So that's one of the ways they do it. And then they have the 100-day limit. If you go when you're not supposed to, it automatically fines you. How long is that going to be until they have actual armed guards at those borders preventing you from leaving? Yeah. And now they say they're not going to do that here in Canada. We're doing everything the exact same, but they're going to stop at the part where they have the barricades, the ballers, and the traffic cameras. Even though they've already created the infrastructure for it in Canada. You guys have seen all these so-called smart lights going up, right?
Yeah.
Well, the smart lights were created by Philips. And when everybody caught on that Philips lights were the ones creating all these smart lights and giving all these government contracts and people were going to get spied on, they got smart. Philips changed their name to Signify Lighting. Signify Lighting is right on the World Economic Forum website as the main partner to install smart cities around the world. Edmonton, which has already been declared a 15-minute city and breaken up into 15 districts, had over 80% of their street lights replaced with these so-called LED smart lights under the auspice that the LEDs use less electricity, so it's for climate change. In reality, every one of these lights is hooked up to the internet. It can record audio and video. So they just made literally hundreds of thousands of hidden cameras all around the city of Edmonton to monitor you in real time. They can figure out where you are in a few seconds by finding out which camera just spotted you.
Yeah.
And
So why the fuck isn't anyone else saying anything?
A lot of people are, but
I mean, like politicians and stuff, like people
because they're
running
the
for
ones that
mayor.
get paid. If I was one of them and I got elected as mayor, they're gonna give me federal funds to impose the 15-minute city on the people, and I'm gonna get those federal funds not just for my budget. They're gonna put a whole bunch of money in my pocket. So all these politicians are getting paid. Gil Peñalosa is a perfect example. He was the second place finisher against John Tory. He had something like 90,000 votes. He started a nonprofit called Cities for Everyone, and it's got rainbow writing. So you already know the agenda behind it.
The alphabet.
And guess what? His Cities for Everyone is modeled directly after the 15-minute city, the personal carbon allowance. He's 100% for the establishment, and every single one of these candidates will be. None of them will tell you about the 15-minute city like I will. None of them will tell you about a personal carbon allowance. When they talk about the 15-minute city, these are the words they're going to use. Convenience, inclusion, equity, climate change. Those are the things they're going to talk about. All buzzwords to make you believe that it's something good, when in reality, a 15-minute city means no more car, no more travel, being relegated to in your own building for the vast majority of your life, and then when combined with a personal carbon allowance, that you literally aren't going to have the ability to go anywhere, because the personal carbon allowance is now a new tax on everything. Because just like you said, when they give us the 2,000 kilogram limit based on the Paris Climate Accord agreement, and we fly and we use 500 kilograms in one day or 25%, well, they're going to break it up monthly. Yeah. So you're going to have so much limit per month.
You won't even be able to make that trip because you're limited by that.
Or you'll have to pay for it.
True. Okay.
And how much are you going to pay? Trudeau already told us. Trudeau was on TV and said by 2030, by the Paris Climate Accord agreement, they're going to charge you $170 for every ton of CO2 you go over. So this is like, remember how they had the carbon tax and it was just for big business and then it was just for fuel? Now the carbon tax is going to be applied to every single thing that you buy, including the clothes, including the food you eat. In the new world, when you order a pizza in a restaurant, it'll have a carbon rating as well as the price. And depending on the toppings you choose, you'll have a higher carbon tax. and a higher price.
Yo, the crazy thing is like this shit sounds straight out of a movie. You
It
know what I
is,
mean?
because-
and the crazy thing. Sorry to interrupt you,
Go ahead.
but like, it's like what makes you feel like that superhero role. You know what I mean? Like you're the only one really speaking on real shit like this. Like it's pretty like, how do I say this? It's pretty scary, the shit that we're talking about, in the sense of how much control they have and how all the world like leaders are working together. You know what I mean? Like how confident are you in that this is 100%?
I'm 100% confident because I've seen it with my own eyes. I lived in it, and I'm not the only one talking about it. Lots of people are talking about it. Hell, like I said, 94% of the city of Oxford voted against it.
Yeah.
So it's not like people don't know. It's that they have very good control of propaganda and the TV, and people are still kind of like, they're just in denial, just like they were with COVID. Everybody was just listening to what the government said. How many people put a mask on their children and themselves only to realize that it did absolutely nothing to help them? How many people closed down their business to the point where they lost their homes for what? Because the government told them to? And then how many people took a friggin' experimental injection against their will for an arbitrary reason, like, oh, I wanted to travel, or oh, I wanted to go visit somebody, or oh, I was afraid I might lose my job. And now what? They have heart problems, they have blood clots, they have all these issues. These people were in denial and they suffered consequences. So some of those people are going to learn and not want to make those same mistakes. Some of those people will never learn. We're never going to be able to help those people. But we just got a whole bunch more people added to our so-called freedom movement. Before, we were called the fringe minority, anti-maskers, anti-vaxxers, conspiracy theorists. Then we were millions of people. Now all of a sudden, we got all the people that got vaccinated that regret it. And that's the vast majority of people, because they all know they did it for no reason. They all know it didn't help them. And in a lot of cases, it actually made people sicker. So now we have a whole bunch more people that can come on our side. And that's why I know my run for mayor is going to be successful. When John Tory ran for mayor, do you know how many people actually voted in that election?
No, how many?
29% of the eligible voters of Ontario got up and voted. You know what that means? That means 71% of Toronto are people like me. I've never voted in my life in any election whatsoever. Why? Because none of the candidates ever made me think they were going to represent me or do anything that was going to make my life better. When people hear me and people look at me, they understand that I will do things to make their life better. I will fight for them. I would get up and vote for me. So I know those 71% of people that sat on their ass will get up and vote for me. And the non-voter is by far the largest voting demographic in all of Canada.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what age group, doesn't matter what political affiliation. And with mayor, there is no political affiliation anyway.
Yeah.
So I have the support of people from all sides of the political spectrum, as well as I have the support of the people that feel disenfranchised with the political parties. And that's the vast majority of the population. And that's why they're so scared.
When you were younger, did you ever think you would put in a position like this? Like, what's your why? Like, I feel like you're battling against like, and someone's doing it. Like you said earlier, like we need someone doing that. You know what I mean? So what's your why? Like
necessity, bro. Like before COVID, you see my beautiful wife over there. We had a pretty wonderful life. We had over 100,000 followers on Instagram just because we were traveling the world to warm, exotic places with other good-looking women. That was my life. I had a fantastic career. I had a perfect wife, and we spent our free time traveling the world, which is what I believe everybody should do, by the way, because I think it just opens up your perspectives and changes your changes your life for the better everywhere you go. And then all of a sudden, boom, it was all taken away from us. And not only was it that and the decadent stuff taken away from us, when you look towards the future, you didn't see any opportunities for that stuff to come back. All you saw was more destitution, more suffering, more pain. And I didn't want to go down that route. I don't think anybody wanted to go down that route. And then when I realized I had the power to do something about it, which was by accident, we went to a protest because she found a flyer online for a protest at Queen's Park. And like I said, I've never been politically active. I don't consider myself right, left, any of that garbage. Never voted. Never been to a protest, definitely. But I said, this is pretty scary. This is going to affect everybody. It's affecting us right now. So we better go and figure out what's going on. So we went to Queen's Park, and it was the first protest, I believe, for any of this going around anywhere. And as you might expect, it was completely disorganized. There were some really weird people walking around. And the mainstream media showed up because it was a fringe minority, and they could make us look like a fringe minority, and that's exactly what they wanted. And they started filming people with weird haircuts and people that had profanity on their signs to make us look bad. So I got upset, and I just grabbed the camera and put it on me, and I just did a rant. Not even thinking. I just was pissed. And then all of a sudden, everybody around me was like, holy shit, you can speak. Like, you know what you're talking about. And this little old lady walked over to me and handed me a megaphone. She's like, we need you to speak. And I looked her right in the eye and I was like, oh, no. Just like everybody, the first thing that brought in my head, I don't want the government coming after me. I don't want them coming after my family. I don't want them coming after my work. I don't want them coming after me in the media. I don't want them trying to arrest me. Because I already knew what was going to happen if I put myself front and center on this, because I knew it was a government agenda. So I didn't want to do any of that. And I told the old lady, hell no. And I looked her in the eyes, and she had this really sad look in her face, and I already started feeling bad. Then I looked over to the left and had her looking at me like this. And I'm like, what? She says, you know what you're talking about, and people listen to you. She's like, so if you don't speak out and you don't help people, she's like, everything that happens is going to be your fault.
Oh,
your fault. I literally saw it in slow motion. It even repeated in my mind, and the finger was like a knife coming through me. So at that point, I was like, wow, pack the bags. We're going on a guilt trip.
Yeah.
And yeah, I went around the world on that, and that's what started me speaking out. And then when I started speaking out, the more shit they would do to me and the more things they tried. Like, I've been arrested now 26 times. Both of us just got arrested 3-4 days ago for absolute lunacy. I faced over 60 charges. I think we might even be up to 70 now. And guess what? I still have absolutely no criminal record because they're all false charges. They're all fake, politically motivated charges, and they don't stick. But it still goes to show you exactly what I feared would happen did happen. They came after me in every way possible. They slander me in every way possible in the media. They want people to think I'm literally a killer and a psychopath because I didn't want to wear a mask and I didn't want to take an experimental injection that I knew wasn't going to help me and I knew could hurt me. And because I advocated for people to not close their own businesses down. Because I don't know about, I'm in economics, I'm in the development world and business world. So I do my research and I understand how our economy works. People don't realize this, but 90% of all the businesses in Canada and the United States are considered small businesses. And over 70% of all our jobs are connected to those small businesses. That is the true backbone of our economy. And during COVID, we lost almost 30% of the businesses in Canada.
Yeah.
That's about 300,000 businesses that went under. And we're talking some businesses that were there for 100 years, 50 years, 30 years. These are people that proven themselves as entrepreneurs. And they got thrown out of business, not because of COVID, because of government. And with it, all the jobs. And with it, all the GDP. Meanwhile, what did they do with government? They increased the budget and they increased the spending every single year when our GDP is dropping. And then they increased the government spending by like $500 billion over the past few years. And we're wondering why we have an inflationary crisis. We're wondering why we have a cost of living crisis. We're wondering why we're on the precipice of probably the worst recession since I've been alive that they won't talk about, and they have to redefine the word recession.
Do you think that
Try to
recession
pretend like it's not really happening?
I think it's happening already, this recession.
Of course,
right?
it's happening. It's happening right now. I'd hate to say this to people, but it's coming. It's coming no matter what they do. Look at the scam they did with the mortgages. They have people that got variable rate mortgages. Okay, that sounds great until you realize that it should be variable on your principal, not variable on the interest rate. Yeah. So now you have all these people that they thought they were getting a deal because their payment was set at $2,500 a month, and then interest rates went up a few times. So now they still have to pay the $2,500 a month, but their true mortgage payment is like $3,500 a month. So every month they're falling behind on their mortgage, and they don't even realize it, and they're not putting that extra money in because they don't have it. So what's going to happen to a lot of people in Canada is the bank's going to come knocking and say, hey, you're so behind on your mortgage, you're going to need to refinance. But because interest rates are so high, when they refinance, they're going to have to put down tens of thousands of more dollars. And 99.9% of people are not going to have that money. So they're either going to have to foreclose on their homes or be forced to sell and downsize their home. This is where we're headed. And that's what the government wants. You don't see any single family dwellings and garages in a 15-minute city. They do not exist. If you don't believe me, ask them to show you a rendering of a 15-minute city. You'll see what I showed you. People that are living in a 250 square foot condo, that walk down the stairs to go to their job, that stay in the same building to eat lunch, stay in the same building to do their grocery shopping, hit the gym in the same building, hang out at Starbucks with their friends in the same building, then go back up to their 250 square foot apartment to do it all over again the next day.
Is this agenda reversible?
They're doing the gender reversal as well.
Sorry. Is this agenda? Is this agenda reversible? Like what the
agenda reversible?
We'll get into that too, though.
Yes. The agenda is completely reversible. The agenda can only happen if you submit. That's the trick. That's why I started the two main movements for COVID. Just say no on an individual level. Just say no to the mask. Just say no to the vaccine. Just say no to the business closure. What can they do? What? Give you a fine? Give millions of people a fine. What happens? The court system can't process them and nobody gets fined. So if everybody did their part and stood up for themselves, we have something called, what I called, united non-compliance. When you get enough people to just say no for the same reason, and that reason was freedom. That reason was a future for your family. Whatever that reason was to you, when you get enough people to stand up and just say no, surprise, surprise, you bring governments to their knees and you do it non-violently, non-aggressively, and out of self-defense and with a message of positivity and love. And what happened? We have a perfect example of united noncompliance called the trucker convoy. And what happened? All of a sudden, all our mandates were gone. The government was so choked, they put an emergency act in place. They took people's business lives. They froze people's bank accounts, threw people in jail. Everything they could to intimidate the population. But in the end, what happened? All the mandates were gone. Look at the United States. They still have travel mandates in place.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Why? Because they didn't have a trucker convoy. The U.S. has 330 million people, all the guns, all the money. They got the balls. They're the Americans. But little Canada, with our united noncompliance, has more freedoms today than they do in the U.S. And they have the protection of a constitution, which is a lot stronger than our Charter of Rights, which we might as well wipe our ass with. But yeah, so that's the message I've been trying to tell people. And it works for the carbon garbage too, because they can't put you in a 15-minute city unless you allow them. If you see them literally building a prison around you and you don't do anything about it, who do you have to blame but yourself? You're volunteering. And that's what all of their plans do. That's why they put all this propaganda to make you volunteer. The same thing with the carbon allowance. They can't just put you in a position where they all of a sudden just tax you. They have to get you to comply and go along with it. And they're doing it. MasterCard already has a climate credit card. A climate credit card. Look it up. It gives you your monthly credit limit and a monthly carbon limit. Just like I told you they want to do to you. And if you hit your monthly carbon limit, but not your credit limit, your card still won't work. That's how they want it. They want you on that system. But they can't do it to you. You have to comply. When you book that flight to Amsterdam now, it's going to ask you if you want to pay the voluntary carbon tax. Yeah. Do you want to pay it?
Hell no.
Obviously not. But if they can convince enough people to do it voluntarily, just like when they convince enough people to wear the mask, what happens next? Then it becomes mandatory. So with these carbon taxes, they started really small to make you feel bad. You're booking a $1,000 flight. The carbon tax they ask you to voluntarily pay is $5. So they try to make you feel like a piece of shit for not doing your part. Meanwhile, Sweden has the exact same thing in play, and they've had it for almost a year now. Every single month, that voluntary carbon tax rises, obviously. It's now at the point in Sweden, it started at $5 on a $1,000 flight like it did over here. Now that $1,000 flight in Sweden has a voluntary carbon tax of $250.
That's crazy, man.
Yeah, 25% tax.
And like the average person doesn't even know things like this is going on.
Then that's what they count on. They count on the ignorance of the average person, and that's why we can reverse the agenda. You just hit the nail on the head. Why do you think I'm doing what I'm doing? Why do you think I risk my life to speak out? Why do you think I'm trying to run for mayor so I can get a platform that's even bigger, that will amplify my voice, legitimize my voice? Because I got to tell people what's going on. Because once you tell people what's going on, surprise, surprise, they're not going to volunteer willingly. Yeah. And it's a lot easier now than it was for COVID. Because with COVID, people were legitimately scared, number one. Some people actually were scared of the virus. Number two, people were scared of the government. They didn't want to get fined. They didn't want to get arrested. Plus, they didn't want to lose their jobs. Plus, they were worried about what their family and friends would say. So there was all those ways to coerce people into submission. In the climate change agenda, there's none of that. There's no mandates. There's no restrictions. There's no social stigma from your friends and family saying, how dare you not want to have your personal carbon allowance? There's none of that. Yeah. So that's why they tried to manufacture that through COVID. And they didn't want the mandates to leave. Their plan was to have the mandates in place while they put all this carbon stuff in place. Because then when we're distracted and paralyzed by the mandates, we would have no resistance. Because we threw off the chains of the mandates, they were forced to literally just try to bombard us with the whole 15-minute city, carbon tax, all that stuff at the same time, digital ID, because they won't be able to do it one at a time anymore. Yeah. They have to try to do it all at once. And if any one of those layers of tyranny, and I'm going to trademark that term, fails, they fail. Yeah. And we know they're going to fail. We know it's inevitable that they fail. The only question is how long it's going to take for them to fail. And the longer it takes for them to fail, the more opportunity they have to inflict pain and suffering to millions and millions of people. So what am I trying to do? I'm trying to expedite the failure by waking up the people and putting myself into a position of power where I can not only wake up the people as mayor, I can throw a lot of monkey wrenches into their agenda. I can use my powers as the mayor to veto their bylaws, get rid of restrictions, make sure that not $1 of federal funding goes to a 15-minute city or a carbon allowance or a carbon tax, or any of that. Yeah. There's lots I can do to stop their agenda. So we're in a race right now. This is them implementing their agenda, and this is the people waking up till they get the critical mass to oppose the agenda.
Yeah. So is there like literally a fucking agenda? Like these guys are literally writing out on a piece of paper what's happening in the next 30 years? Like,
it's called Agenda 2030. It used to be called Agenda 21, but they couldn't get it done in time. So now it's called Agenda 2030. So what happens on the internet. It's on the United Nations website. Come on, guys. It's literally, and they're telling you literally what they're going to do to you. But yeah. It's definitely an agenda. So and it's a global agenda. It's not coming from your local government. Yeah. That's what people need to realize. You're electing these politicians to look after you and make decisions for you and make decisions in your best interest and in the best interest of the country. But then they're taking their marching orders from unelected bureaucrats in another country who are giving them orders to implement things here to make life better for them and worse for us. That's the reality of the situation. You can't break it down any more simple than that. So any of the other people you vote for are going to do that. They're going to take money from the globalists. They're going to take orders from the globalists. They're going to implement the agenda that we all know. Me? I will do everything in my power and even beyond my power to stop that and to protect the people from that and to give the people what every elected representative should. A proper mayor of Toronto should be able to provide the people with a higher standard of living and a lower cost of living than his previous successor. That means he's done his job right. Yeah. In reality, you can talk to anybody in Toronto, whether they're 30, 40, 50, 60. The older you get, the further you go back, the better Toronto was. Yeah. It was better 30 years ago than it was 20 years ago. It was better 20 years ago than it was 10 years. So it goes to show you that this wasn't something that just happened overnight. Yeah. This happened over literally decades of people being apathetic and letting the government make all their decisions and trusting them blindly. And in the last 3 years, we saw how bad that really can go. Yeah. So we can change it.
Once you're mayor, what's the most urgent task that you're going to go attack?
There's three main pillars to my my platform and my campaign. The number one thing I would do is immediately remove all the mandates and restrictions and put people back to work that were fired without real cause. Like if you got fired because you didn't want to wear a mask or you didn't want to take a jab or you didn't want to write somebody a fine for sitting on a park bench, you should have your job back. Yeah. Then all the people that wrote all those fines, all those bad cops that were giving people penalties when they're already suffering mental anguish and they already lost their jobs and their businesses, those kind of cops don't need to be on the force. So just doing that right away, giving people their job security, letting business owners know that there's no way they're ever going to get shut down again. It would also increase people to wanting to open a business, which would give us jobs, GDP, a better economy right off the bat, and change the whole tone of the city. The second thing I would do, and probably just as important, do you guys know what the budget of Toronto is?
No clue.
It's almost $17 billion. Do you understand that that's more than the GDP of most countries of the entire world? Yeah. And we have that money to take care of 3 million, 4 million people, and they squander it. And every year, the people are told to do more with less, while the government consistently does less with more. Every year that the government goes through their budget, every department of the government asks for the maximum budget allowed every year. So every single year, the government is constantly growing at the maximum rate allowed, regardless of what the economy does. Even if the economy stays flat or even declines, the government still grows. Yeah. That's a completely unsustainable thing and complete recipe for disaster. And it's not like it takes a genius to understand that. Everybody understands it. They just don't care because they're the ones benefiting and the people are the ones that are getting screwed. So I would go through that $17 billion budget with an entire forensic analysis team, and I would find literally billions of savings. Billions. And I would make every department justify every dollar that they're asking for. Not just asking for the maximum so they could frivolously spend it on garbage. Like, do you understand that they even use government money to fund all ages drag shows for children? No, that's
sad, bro. That shit's sad.
That's gone. Soji's gone from the schools. All that stuff is not happening in my city. And when we get an extra couple billion from that budget, we can use that and put it back into the community. Put it into the minority communities. Build community center that needs there. Build the hospital that's needed there. Build and look after the homeless and the veterans. Toronto has the highest and fastest growing homeless population in the world. Our veterans are cast aside as nothing. And there should be money and programs there to give them housing, jobs, mental health, etc. And we have it. We have everything we need to make Toronto the best city in the world, like it used to be many, many years ago. Yeah. But what are they doing? Every year they're stealing. And I'll get those same forensic accountants to go look at the budgets of the last 3 years. And you know what you're going to find? More money lost than any other time in the history of Canada. Because under the guise of that emergency, there was more theft, embezzlement, and corruption than any other time in history. And you're going to see a wave of resignations when I'm mayor, because you're going to see these rats fleeing before they get prosecuted, because that's what's going to happen there. And the third thing I would change about the city is the entire thing about safety. The city's safety has dwindled, and there's 3 reasons for that. Number one, the relationship between the police and the public. When I was growing up, we thought of cops as heroes. We wanted to be cops. When we saw them, we were like excited to see them. Now what happens when you see a cop? You're automatically scared, even if you didn't do anything, right?
Yeah.
Everybody, even when you're not you might have no criminal record, and all of a sudden you're like, oh shit.
Yeah, looking over your
Why?
back.
Because they've been trained. John Tory used them the last 3 years like his own personal Gestapo. And they were literally going into friggin' parks and giving tickets to mothers with children sitting on park benches. And they were harassing people for just doing arbitrary things, living their life. That created such an animosity between the public that it created that scenario where you're less safe. And now the people are less inclined to engage with police officers, help them. And the other thing that's really destroying the safety of the city is the sanctuary city status. John Tory, so-called conservative, made Toronto the only sanctuary city in Canada, which means... And what a sanctuary city means for people that don't know is it means that illegal immigrants can live there, be given all the services of a citizen, and be granted special protections from the police, so their status cannot be questioned or their criminal record can't be checked. Now, that's the most important part of all this, because now you have the worst of the worst, guys hiding out in all different parts of Canada that are here illegally and are on ridiculously bad charges like rape, murder. And what do? They go right to Toronto because they know they're going to get looked after, and they know they're protected from the police and nobody's going to know their criminal record.
Wow. And
now we have almost 500,000 illegals, more than half of them with criminal records, living in Toronto. And that means hundreds of thousands of Torontonians are living next to somebody that has a criminal record and is in here illegally and is far more likely to reoffend than a normal citizen. So these are the 3 things that if you change those things right away, and you could change them right away, all of a sudden Toronto becomes a much better place to live. And maybe we'll stop the mass exodus. I don't know if you guys are knowing, but Toronto's been breaking records for actual Canadians leaving and going to other parts of Canada.
Yeah.
So it's the king of immigration. Oh, yeah, we're bringing all these people to Toronto a year. Yeah, we're bringing in people from third world countries and 17 of their relatives, and we're paying for them. Meanwhile, the people that lived in Toronto, that work in Toronto, that have been paying taxes in Toronto for 20, 30 years and have 6-figure incomes are leaving in droves. So they try to make it seem like Toronto's doing well with net immigration numbers, but when your net immigration numbers are third worlders without skills, without income, and most don't even bring anything to the country, and everyone that's leaving is a pillar of the community, that's why Toronto's been suffering.
Yeah. And when is the election day?
The election is amazing because it's a by-election. A normal election would have been 10 months long,
Yeah.
and it would have been virtually impossible for somebody like me to run because we know that they're going to do everything they can to try to starve us from getting donations. We're not going to be getting the bankers and all these multi-gazillionaires trying to help us. We're going to be getting the people to help us. And if we had to sustain that in a 10-month election, it would have been virtually impossible. They spend millions and millions and millions of dollars. But because of the by-election status and because we're all only going to be eligible from April 3rd, that's when my appointment is, the election is June 26th. That's 3 months.
Yeah.
So I don't care if these guys spend $3 million a month. If we get the minimum amount of money required, which is a fraction of the money that these people are going to be spending, with the way we're going to be running our campaign, with the message we have, with me as a candidate, there is no way in hell they can beat us. And I have everybody asking me like, oh, how do you think you can win for mayor? Who are you? Like, who is everybody else that's running? Who are they? I haven't heard of any of them. I've heard of me. A lot of other people have heard of me. And what qualifications do these people have? For these people, being mayor is a political opportunity. It's a job opportunity. It's a promotion. It's a pay raise. It's a career opportunity because they don't have anything else going on. For me, it's a sacrifice. I had to give up my life. My wife had to give up her life. We have to give up our income. We have to give up our career to come here and try to help the people. It's a completely different mindset. Yeah. We are here out of passion and necessity. Those people are there out of selfish interest. And you'll be able to see it right in the campaign. They're going to spend millions and millions of dollars. We're going to spend a few $100,000, and somehow we're still going to beat the shit out of them. So what does that tell you about how our administration is going to work versus theirs?
More efficient.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
That's crazy.
Do you have any fears running for mayor?
I fear for my wife's safety more than anything because I know they're going to come out. They come after us all the time. They come after us physically, mentally, psychologically, financially, every which way possible. But my biggest fear, obviously, is them coming after her physically. We're going to have security. I was telling you guys this before. It's like a movie to me because every person I need for this to happen literally just comes to me and falls right in my lap. I don't have to do anything. Yeah. It's like they're all being provided to me. 4-man security team, the best campaign manager I could imagine. The whole team that supported Rob Ford in his historic campaign victory comes to me. And all these top people in their fields just message me out of the blue. It's like, I think you could use this skill set. And it's exactly what I need when I need it. This isn't accidental. Just like me running for mayor wasn't accidental. It was, in my opinion, it was the universe telling me I had to do it. Yeah. And now that I made that choice and now that I've committed 150% and I'm working 22 hours a day on it, every single day something significant happens that pushes us closer towards victory. Yeah. So I know we're doing the right thing. I know I've been doing the right thing for the last 3 years. If I didn't think I was doing the right thing, I wouldn't have got arrested 26 times. And if I didn't think I had a chance to win and really make a difference, I wouldn't be sitting in this house right here. Yeah. My wife and I, we have Mexican residency too. We could have been on the beach in Mexico. I could sell my properties here. I could cash out, just leave, and I could have a baby, enjoy my life, retire. But no, I can't do that.
I feel how do you deal with all the stress, man?
How does everybody deal with stress? I hit the gym every day, number one, and you're going to be seeing that on the campaign. On the campaign, I'm going to be going to a different LA fitness every single day so we can really spread the word out to people and just to show people how important fitness is. Because if it wasn't for fitness, and during COVID when they shut down the gyms, I did anything I could to train. The first thing I did was build a gym in my house. But it took me a couple months just to get all the equipment together for it. So I was paying a guy like $400 a month to use a private gym. Yeah. We were normally paying like $30-40 a month. So that's how important fitness was to me. And I spent a whole bunch of money building my own gym because I need to train every day. That's how I relieve stress. It's how I meditate. It's how I think about what needs to be done. It's how I take a step back because you never want to just make decisions rationally. Mm-hmm. You want to sit on it, think about it, and that's what you do at the gym because you have no choice.
Yeah, straight up. Between reps, right?
Yeah, exactly. So to me, that's the number one way of de-stressing. Obviously, I spend a lot of time with my wife. She's my rock. I think we spend more time together than any other married couple that I know anyway. It helps that I wasn't allowed to drive for the last 2 years, and she has to drive me.
Now you're in the passenger.
Yeah, that also helped too because now that I'm running for mayor, I'm not supposed to be driving, and it helps me get a lot of stuff done. But I do miss driving. But I will get my license back in a few days when I finally get acquitted of the ridiculous charges that I'm on.
Yeah, those are crazy.
Yeah, assault with deadly weapon on police, in case you're wondering. Threatening to kill all the premiers in Canada. And dangerous operation of motor vehicle just tossed on for fun. Obviously, completely false, completely set up, completely politically motivated, to the point where they delayed the trial for the maximum number of days, to the day. And then they gave me a 3-day trial, and then they extended that to a 4-day trial, extended that to a 5-day trial, and after the 5-day trial was finished, the judge needed another month to deliberate. So they literally tried to delay it as long as physically possible. March 28th, I'm finally going to get acquitted. I know I'm going to get acquitted, so I can say that. And I'm looking forward to it, because then they're going to have nothing on me.
Yeah. But it's crazy how they keep coming for you. They keep trying to plant you in situations. Like doesn't that ever, like, worry you, man? Like,
I'm not worried, because they've tried everything already, and they just keep trying it. And everything they try, not only does it fail, it always backfires. Like when they arrested us the other day. So, okay, yeah, they gave me a bullshit mischief charge and heard that we're going to beat. They banned us from the Edmonton airport for life, which is probably going to last for about 30 days before it gets overturned. And guess what happened? You know how many people called me wanting to support me even more because they see how the government's trying so hard to stop me? And it's just like with the climate change. It's just like with COVID. They can't stop me. They can make me quit, but it's still me making that decision.
Yeah.
They can't physically stop me. They've been trying every which way they can, but they can't. I'll keep moving forward. I'll keep taking their punches, and I'll keep throwing them back harder. And they know this. So they're trying everything they can to make me quit, but I'm never going to quit, especially now. I smell the blood in the water. I know I can win this. And not only do I know I can win this, I know I can win this, and I know I can make a huge impact, not just in Toronto, not just in Canada, but around the world.
Yeah.
I know earlier we talked, but you told us about a little motivation you got out of for running for mayor. What do you think that helped you with?
It helped me with a lot, because I never considered, I hate politics. I hate politicians. I never considered any type of political run whatsoever. And the only reason I considered this was because when John Tory, first of all, it's the highest ranking office you can get without any political affiliation.
Okay.
Number one. So that's amazing.
Drop to the top.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's the first important thing. The second thing was just with all the new mayoral powers and it being Toronto, which is considered the crown jewel in the World Economic Forum, it's like going right to the jugular,
literally,
of their World Economic Forum agenda. So it was a unique opportunity that I don't think anybody's ever going to get ever again. Like, when can you, like, we can literally win this election for around $300,000 when they're going to be spending millions and millions of dollars. That's all we're going to need. So imagine being able to derail a multi-trillion-dollar agenda that's been planned for decades, that's been carried out with millions of people trying to destroy the world, and for a measly 6 figures and 3 months and a little bit of nitty-gritty, we could stop that. It's insane.
It's crazy.
There's never been anything like it. And that's why I got to take this opportunity, because, to be honest, usually it would take a multitude of resources to beat people like this. And people like me wouldn't have access to that. And that's why I don't really trust all these so-called really wealthy people that are supposedly on our side. Because if I had that kind of money, if I had even $100 million in the bank, I'd already be the Prime Minister of Canada. All these restrictions would be gone. Canada would have the highest standard of living in the world, and everybody else would be using us as an example to follow. So where are all these billionaires sitting on the sidelines? Why am I having to go to the freedom movement and scrape together a few $100,000 from thousands of different supporters that are so broke they can only give me $20, $50? And when I get that from them, I actually feel bad. I don't even want to take it because I know they need it. Yeah. Meanwhile, there's these people sitting on the sidelines that have money to literally run countries. And they pretend like they're on our side, but they won't even lift a finger or spend $1.
It's true.
So, and let's be real. Whatever the last 3 years, everything I've done it with no money, with no real support. So imagine what we can do when we get the support, not just financially, but support of all the good people that are coming up with their skill set to want to help. I always call it the Chris Sky Army, but now I have a Chris Sky Army of absolute specialists that are at the top of their game in their fields, and they're here for one reason. They all are here because they believe in what I believe in. They're not here to work for me for money like all those other campaigns. They're here because they believe in me. They're here because they believe in what we're doing. And there is nothing more powerful than that.
And not only your Avengers there, bro, but like you also have real people who look to meet with you. Like that one story you told us about the girl.
Yeah, that happens all the time. People want to meet us everywhere we go. Even I was shocked to see how much reach we had, because we did get invited to speak around the world. So we spoke in England, Ireland, France, Netherlands, Germany, Belgium, Mexico. I'm probably missing some places. I got invited actually to go back to speak in Belgium during the campaign. They actually invited me to sit in a parliament in Brussels and then address the nation the following day. So I'm going to take 3 days off the campaign to go do that. But they let us do that because our message, it's real. And it's not just relevant here, it's relevant everywhere. And not only is it relevant everywhere, we want people to combine it everywhere. Because if everybody gets on that same mindset, that's what United Noncompliance is. United Noncompliance, we broke it down into 3 phases. Phase 1 was the global awakening, when everybody around the world heard what's really going on and realized that it's not about health and safety, it's about power and control. Just like that. Yeah. That's how you wake up. When people say, well, how do you wake up? You realize the truth. And the truth is, all those measures had nothing to do with your health and safety. It has to do with control. And like that, the lights go on with those people. Now that that person's awake, they can be a freedom fighter. And the government knows this. So in order to nullify those people, the government needs to bombard them with negativity. Negative from the TV, from the all types of media, from the government, from the public health officials. Because if you're negative and you're in that state of mind, you're going to say, oh, there's nothing I can do. Oh, it's going to happen anyway. Oh, et cetera, et cetera. And then you hear someone like me talking and saying, man, you're being pussies. You need to step up your game. If you're in that negative state of mind, you'll be like, why is Chris Sky calling me a pussy? What an asshole. I'm not going to listen to him. So you're nullified, even though you're awake. And you're basically useless at that point. Yeah. But if you activate your positivity, now not only are you ready to fight back, you're in a position where you can connect with others of the same mindset to fight back. So now you can actually unite and not comply. And when you get to that state, you can move to phase 2 of United Noncompliance, which is taking action. And that's what we've been doing all over the world. Yeah. Yeah. Rallies, podcasts, music videos, lawsuits, you name it, we did it. And the phase 3 of that is holding these people accountable. And that's what I'm trying to do. Because we've been trying to do it, but what happens? They resign or they get rehired somewhere else. When I'm in a position like mayor and I can open investigations against these people, we can make real examples of these people. We can show the world that there's real consequences for their actions, and we can make people think twice before ever trying.
Looks like Elon going through the Twitter files, just exposing all that shit.
Yeah, that's a good example. Yeah. Got a clean house.
Yeah. No, that's crazy, man. Honestly, it's been amazing to actually know you. Like to actually I don't know you, but like the fact that we sat down and talked out there, bro, and you're a very genuine person, and I truly believe you're doing this for the right reasons. You know what I mean? And for those who just see you online, especially during like COVID and the little clips and stuff, like they don't see this part of you. They won't be able to see this.
They don't want people to see that part of me. They don't want people to see me as a real person. They want people to see me as this weird icon that they can paint the narrative of. Oh, he's got blonde hair. Oh, he's got muscles. Oh, he's got tattoos. He's obviously a bad person. He's obviously a criminal. He's obviously a racist. Reality is, every one of my tattoos means something special, first of all. Like, I got my wife over here. Oh, no, I got Archangel Michael over here, who's supposed to be the protector of mankind. But they make it seem like my tattoos are somehow a negative. But they're not. They're all something special that means something to me, and they're all a part of me. And if you're worried about a guy having a tattoo, or worried about the fact that he's going to lie to you and stab you in the back, then it says a lot more about you than it does me. But people are realizing this now. People are realizing that all the stuff that's about me all the bad stuff about me is either lies or it's just superficial stuff. Like my fake teeth, which aren't fake, or my fake lips, which aren't fake. Stupid things like that. And when people realize that, then they start wondering, well, why are they going after this guy like this? There's got to be something to it. And now it's to the point where people understand. And people realize that everything I was doing was I was trying to help them. Mm-hmm. Even the people that I was mad at, even the people I was yelling at, even the people I was berating, they understand I wasn't doing it because I hated them. I was doing it because I wanted better for them, because I saw that they were hurting themselves and hurting everybody else. So you can even go ask far left. I don't like that term left, right? But the typical far left people, like the ones that were wearing double masks, the ones that are 4 jabs deep, the ones that were all about, they're probably still wearing a mask today. You can say, what do you think about Chris Sky? And they'll say, I hate that guy. And they'll list all the things they hate about me. Then ask them, what do you think about Chris Sky as mayor? And all of a sudden their mindset, they'll say something like, I hate that guy, but he would make a good mayor. And why do they say that? Because they know that I'm honest. They know that I'm a warrior. They know I'll stand up for them. And they know I won't piss in their face and tell them it's raining. I'll tell them the truth. And no one else is going to do that for them. So they appreciate that. They might not have appreciated it as much as when I was Chris Sky, the activist, because it was just coming from like a place of, why aren't you doing what you should be doing? But they appreciate it when it's coming from Chris Sky, the statesman. And so it's a totally different mindset. And I think me running for mayor wasn't just a great idea that allowed me to get in a position where I can put myself between the bad people and the good people we're trying to protect and give myself certain powers to help the people. But it also put me in a position where my voice was legitimized for a majority of the population. And it became easier for them to believe me. And it became easier for them to support me. And I started seeing support and unity even within the freedom movement. There was a lot of division in the freedom, especially about me. I was a very controversial figure. I still am. But as soon as I said I was running for mayor, all those people that were infighting and all those people that were berating me, all of a sudden they all got on podcasts and said, we need to get behind Chris Sky. We need to get behind this idea. And if I knew it was that easy after 3 years, trying everything in my power to unite people, and all I had to do was say, I'm going to run for mayor and try to represent you and try to protect you, to unite the people like it did, I would have done it a long time ago. But I never had the opportunity to.
That's what I was going to say. Like, when you look back and reflect, like, the last 2-3 years, like, they happened so freaking quick. Like, would you do it a different way? Like, do you regret anything?
I don't ever have regrets, and I don't think I would do anything differently whatsoever. I'd probably go even harder if I could do it again, to be honest.
So you'd say you're happier with the person you became to this day?
Oh my God, I grew more in the last 2-3 years than I had in the last 30. Yeah. Got more gray hair in that time too.
Yeah. No, that's amazing, man. Like, is there any like last things I think like you would like to?
People need to understand. I want to stress, if they don't take anything else away from this, everything that's happening and everything that's going to happen is entirely up to you. It's that simple. They need you to go along with it. That is why they tell you what they intend on doing to you. Because they want you to believe it's an inevitability, so you simply go along with it and don't resist. The moment you resist, the moment you stand up, you don't have to get arrested 26 times like me. You just have to stand your ground a little bit. And the moment you do that, not only will you fundamentally change as a person, the world will fundamentally change. And that's what we're trying to do. That's all we're trying to do. We're not trying to swindle you. We're not trying to scam you. We're simply trying to wake you up to the reality that you have the power to choose what happens in your future and your kids' future. And we want to give you the inspiration, the education to do what you're supposed to do. And to me, what every single person, everyone in this room, every citizen in every country is supposed to do, when I die, I want to make sure that the world that I left behind has equal or better opportunity for the next generation than I had. And that means I won as a person. That means I did my part as a citizen. That's what it truly means to be a citizen and do your part. Not comply with whatever the government says.
Where does that alignment and search for truth come from?
It's a very good question. I've never been asked that. And you know what? I wish I could answer you. I always just tell people that I'm like supernaturally obligated to tell the truth and supernaturally obligated to do the right. Because it's been like that since I was born. Ever since I was a kid in school, like even in elementary school. If I was walking around outside and I saw a bully bullying someone, I'd go take out the bully. That was just always how I was. And now I see the government as the biggest bully in the world. And I see them literally ruining the lives of millions of people and killing children. Like literally killing children, like that little girl I saw in the hospital. And I'm sorry, I'm just not going to stand by and let that happen. No.
Yeah, no, that's very deep. And you did say that girl looked at you and said, are you going to run for mayor?
That was the reason I ran. When a little girl, 15 years old, 59 pounds, bedridden, unable to even eat solid foods because of government policies, she was perfectly normal and happy and healthy before COVID. When that girl looked up at me and she could barely lift her head off the pillow and said, are you going to run for mayor? Because my daddy said you're going to run for mayor and you're going to help make sure that doesn't happen to other children like me. And that's exactly what I'm going to do.
Yeah, that's powerful, man. And that's very respectable. And the fact that you're taking on all this risk for the better of the people.
That's what it's all about. And that's why my number's out there. Name one other political candidate who's going to have their phone number public. My phone number is 416-400-9228. 9994. And it's going to be on all my election stuff. Everybody knows that that's this phone right here. I have one phone. That's it. And it doesn't go to an assistant. It doesn't go to a voicemail. I don't even have a voicemail because by the time I check it, it would be irrelevant because I move at the speed of light. But if you do call me, I will answer. And that's the way I am, because if you're a public servant, you should be transparent, but even more important, you should be accessible to the public. They shouldn't be calling your office and making an appointment and waiting for an email 3 weeks to get an answer on something. You want an answer, you call me, you're going to get it, and you're going to get a result. And that's how I do everything. I do everything like that.
So your goal is to be a man of the people.
100%. I'm 100% dedicated to the people more than anybody else, and I put my money where my mouth. Like I said, other candidates give out your cell number. Go ahead.
And that's so smart because like that's such a big gap that needs to be filled.
That is the gap that needs to be filled. How do you have a representative? The idea of a representative means they're supposed to represent you. So if you can't even get in touch with your representative, how are they supposed to represent you? And that's why we have this disconnect. People call this number, and they're people that are political, people that want to vote. And when I answer, they start crying because they can't believe that they can actually reach an elected representative because they feel so disenfranchised and so completely devalued by these people. And it's the truth. You think John Tory gives a shit about any single one of us in this room or any of the constituents that voted for him? Absolutely not. He doesn't care. He doesn't need their money. He didn't even need their vote because it's most likely fixed. See, he cares about not at all. I'm the complete opposite. I probably care too much, and that's an issue. But it's definitely not a weakness.
Would you end at mayor, or would you ever go for like premier or prime minister?
I would definitely want to be prime minister one day. If I think mayor would be a stepping stone to that, to be honest. And I think people need to see Pierre Poilievre win. He's going to win. Doesn't mean he's going to do good things. I don't believe in the two-party system at all. I believe it's just a way to control people. And in Canada, we have a fake two-party system because they make you think NDP or anybody else actually matters. It's always only liberals or conservatives.
Literally.
And in reality, they're both going to push the World Economic Forum agenda. When Pierre Poilievre wins as prime minister, which he's going to, mark my words, he's still going to push the 15-minute cities. He's still going to push a carbon allowance. He's still going to push the digital ID, and he's still going to push the digital currency. Only he's going to have a little bit more trust and faith of the public than Trudeau did, and that's why they're going to put him in power now.
Is he any better than Trudeau, you would say, or no?
He's going to be the same shit.
Okay.
That's crazy.
Unfortunately.
Yeah.
You would think it'd be different, you know, like just like
If there was ever real difference, they wouldn't let you. They wouldn't set up the parties like that. There would actually be a way that you could actually have people that represent the people. But what do? They give you a choice of two people, and both are handpicked by them.
And how the hell is Trudeau able to dodge so many questions? Like, yo, that should be a fucking
That's
crime.
what every politician
That
does,
should be
though.
a crime, though. Like, it's the question straight up, and then all of a sudden, all around.
That's what they do, man. And that's once again, that's the complete opposite of me. You ask me a question, you're gonna get a direct answer. I'm gonna articulate it. I'm gonna explain it, and I'll make sure you understand it. They're the complete opposite. Why? Because they're lying, and because they have to hide. You can't ask somebody like. If you're having sex with his girlfriend and he asks you, "Are you having sex with my girlfriend?" You're probably not going to tell him the truth. So this is where all the politicians are. Every question you ask them, you're asking them a question that they're going to have to lie about because they're never working for you. They're always working against you. So that's why they can never answer your questions.
Yeah,
Should we put it?
it's crazy, bro. It's crazy. I feel like we're in a fucking game.
We are in a game. It is a game to them, but to us, it's real life consequences, and that's why we need to make the game have consequences for them. So that's why when I become mayor, I'm going to be showing people that we gotta go after the government and hold these people accountable.
When was the first time you learned about any of this? Like, what was that moment?
I was a kid.
Yeah.
I was like watching Alex Jones at like 15 or 16.
Yeah.
And then to be on his show after that and to have him call me the world's leading activist is pretty cool. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, you were on Alex Jones' show.
I've been on his show many times. He actually tried to offer me to have my own show on his thing when I said I don't work for anybody, because then they'll really call me controlled opposition.
Yeah,
True.
yeah.
No, that shit would be true.
So yeah, the last thing I want to, I don't like getting paid to speak to people.
Yeah.
Because it feels like I'm doing it because I'm trying to help people.
Yeah.
Not because I want them to give me money. So the
right now
idea of getting paid just to tell people the truth, I don't know, it just didn't sit right with me.
So right now it's a passion. You don't want it to become a job.
Exactly. And to be honest, I don't even see mayor as being a job. I see it as being a duty that I have to perform for the people.
So it's like you're calling now.
Yeah, and if you see how I am, you'll see on the campaign. I work 22 hours a day. I might have to get a second campaign team that works in shifts just to keep up with me.
Because now they're dealing with a real entrepreneur, a real fucking hustler out there.
You don't understand, man. I work on another gear that most people don't even have. And now that's an election and I only got 3 months, I'm in a gear that I didn't even know I had. Like, I was already sleeping 3 hours a night. Now I just sleep in car rides.
Yeah.
Like, it's crazy. Yeah. But we getting so much done. And every day, I just have so much in front of me and so much on my plate. And I'm one of those people that's got to eat it all up. So I'm just nonstop going. Everything we do, I can see that it's having a positive effect. And I can see that it's bringing me closer to the victory line. And that's all I care about, is winning this election and making a difference.
Is there any current like events or something that you're hosting that people can come attend and stuff?
Yes, thank you for that. We're having an amazing fundraiser, and this actually was supposed to be on April 1st until Elections Toronto messaged me and threatened to have me thrown in jail for 6 months and disqualified from the campaign. So then I changed it to April 16th when I'm going to be an official candidate by then. So now it's an official campaign fundraiser, and it was supposed to be at a location, a really nice location, that said they supported me and everything I do. And then as soon as the government called them, they called me back and canceled on me. So now we have an alternate location. It's still going to be on April 16th. And people can register and get tickets, but we're not taking the money for tickets yet. We're going to be taking the money starting in the first week of April. But if you go on the website, it's chrissky4change.com. And that's FOR change. So chrissky4change.com. You'll see that you can choose how many tickets you want, the type of ticket you want, and then you could choose your payment method, cash or e-transfer. And then if you have any food allergies or anything, let me know. And you just fill out that form and I'll get you on the registration list. And then as of April 3rd, I'm going to be meeting people in person to collect the funds. And you'll notice that the tickets are $500 a plate. However, because it is an official election fundraiser, every one of those $500 tickets is considered a donation. So it's also eligible for a rebate. And the rebate of each $500 ticket is $325. So it's quite significant. You end up only paying $175 out of pocket for a $500 ticket. My campaign gets the full $500 to work with, and you get a nice rebate, and you get a really nice meal and free drinks for the night. And we're going to be doing some speaking and other stuff. And you get to know that you really helped the campaign a lot.
That's really smart.
Yeah,
yeah, that's really smart.
And now you know why they didn't want me to do it.
Yeah, no, that's crazy. And where was that again, sorry?
I didn't give away the location because
yeah,
I don't want to get them harassed.
No
when
worries.
people, when I start giving out it's in Toronto. It's in a really nice venue. And when people are picking up their tickets, I'm going to give the location. Eventually, it's going to be leaked. I've known the owner of this place for 25 years, so he's not going to get intimidated. And the website, once again, is chrissky4change.com, and you can sign up there. And if you're bringing 2 people, make sure you put both the names of the people, because if you just say that you're taking 2 tickets, they count it as $1,000 contribution, not a $500 contribution. So then the rebate's different.
True.
If you buy if you were buying a ticket and you wanted to bring someone who's not from Ontario who wasn't eligible to buy a ticket, you'd only be able to get the rebate on a $1,000 contribution, which is $525, instead of 2 rebates for $325 on the 2 $500 tickets. So you end up spending like $40 more. Not a big deal.
Yeah.
But just so people know.
Yeah, no, that's good. That's good for them to know. You know what I mean? And yeah.
I don't know, man. You kind of
leave us speechless, man, because like it's just been such an incredible experience.
All you got to do is you got to come follow me around when my campaign gets in motion, because we're going to be riding around on a bus. We're going to have a cameraman, and you just got to see, and everybody else has to see, how the people react when they see us, because the media is going to try to ignore us. The media is going to try to pretend like no one knows who we are. But when we're on the streets and you see how excited people are, and you see how enthusiastic people are to support us, vote for us, volunteer for us, etc., it's going to be undeniable that we are not just the favorites to win this. We are going to win this.
Yep. Cheers to that.
Cheers to that.
Cheers to that. I guess we could end it off there, right?
Yeah, man.
Yeah, thank you again for letting us come to your house, letting us record this. And taking the time.
Yeah, man, honestly, thank you for being humble, and honestly, I hope the best for you.
Hopefully we can do this again before the election's done. We can
we will. We'll do it again before the elections.
Perfect,
for sure.
man.
We'll come back up here.
I'm down.
All right. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. And you guys got spoiled this week.
Yeah,
that shit was crazy.
Make sure to watch last episode also.
Peace. Right?